All right, so first topic is Wells Fargo is shutting down personal lines of credit. So banks issue major businesses loans, right? It's giving out credit, distributing money, and then getting interest on that and helping there to be economic activity and getting returns from themselves and underwriting this activity. Well, one of the things that Wells Fargo would do is offer revolving credit lines for about $3,000 to $100,000. And these were pitched as a way to consolidate higher interest credit card debt, fund home renovations, or backstop your account so you didn't have any overdraft fees. You could rely on that as a source of credit. So that way, if you did overdraft, you could pull upon that credit line and then just have to pay it back. And those had variable rates of anywhere from 9.5 to about 21%, which I learned about today. But Wells Fargo recently reviewed its product offerings and it decided to discontinue offering new personal and portfolio line of credit accounts and close all existing accounts. These closures are final, meaning these accounts will be closed in the next 60 days and then they will not be reopened. And then any balances that still exist will have to be paid off on a fixed payment plan. And this new move could affect credit scores, obviously, because you might have more debt now on your books instead of a revolving credit line. It's going to change the way that debt is posted, the way it looks on your reports. So if you have big credit lines from Wells Fargo, this might be very upsetting to you. I know I was reading some testimonials of customers who were going to different banks and said this is ridiculous and we don't like this, because they are doing it as a surprise to customers. But some of the reasons that have been cited is, in addition to the pandemic restrictions the Fed put on banks, right, and how much they could spend, how much collateral they needed. Back in 2018, Wells Fargo was found guilty of having a lot of their employees push a lot of fake like credit card accounts and stuff, and then open those accounts in their clients' names. So it looked like there were more accounts than they actually had, and they were charging interest to these accounts. They were basically creating fake revenue and lying, and this big scandal of basically opening all these accounts that people didn't even know about that they might have been paying into. So then the Fed punished them and said, you're not allowed to expand your balance sheet anymore until you deal with these issues. And then pandemic hit, so they're just getting slapped all around. By estimates, when you look at other banks and how they weren't limited in their balance sheets, we see that on average, like a lot of the other banks put on billions of dollars worth of capital. That means that some people are estimating that Wells Fargo lost billions of dollars of expanded capital as a result by comparison. So this is viewed kind of as a way for them. They say it's trying to make things easier for people, but it looks like they're just trying to protect themselves, and they realize they don't have enough capital to go around, and they have to start tightening their belt and trying to push more lending out in different ways because they're not making enough, and it's hurting their bottom line. So, which is interesting during a time when bank loans are at an all-time low, and we're starting to see more demand for it. So we see banks trying to push new credit cards with like $1,000 signing bonus for this, or get 50,000 points on this. I see them all the time. Banks want to loan because they want to go back to that business so they can bring the deposit, so they can bring the loans in and have more of that capital collateral to backstop all of their deposits. So, but they don't have as much, so they're trying to figure all that out. But yeah, Wells Fargo shutting down personal lines of credit. If you have one, that's going down in the next 60 days, full account closures. And then they also said, though, they understand this will hurt people's credit. So any of their customers, they're going to be willing to work with one-on-one to help them find a credit solution, which really means, okay, like, I get it. You got all these lines of credit. You need that. You can't depend anymore. So we'll find some of our other products and other ways of lending you money at ridiculous interest rates so that you can pay for your shit. Great. Thanks, Wells.
Yeah,
Just
that,
bullshit after bullshit. But
that's not.
I think they're going to die.
Yeah, there. It sounds like Wells Fargo is in a tough spot right now. And think about if you're trying to build a business right now and you use a line of credit with Wells Fargo and you're only like 3/4 of the way there, and they're just like, all right, well, we're gonna stop that cash flow for your project, and then you're trying to get loans from different places, then it's just you're stuck in a hard place right there. And Wells Fargo is one that they weren't making correct decisions through, and it's evident as of right now because they're shutting down credit lines.
Right, and they're shutting down. This is like a product, like separate from regular credit cards. This is like a specific thing that they offered that was different from everything else. So it's something that not all banks offer, but it's something that they've been offering, and a lot of their customers are very pissed. And at the end of the day, it really hurts the consumers. At the end of the day, like the bank's trying to save itself, and I understand that, but at the same time, consumers have come to rely on these things and have built their spending and budgeting around this and use it in very plausible ways to help backstop their spending or things they need to do. So especially if like all of a sudden you were in the mid project and you borrowed off this for a while, now all of a sudden you get shut down, you're not going to get any more money out of it, and then you have to pay a fixed rate going forward. So again, as many of you will realize that over time, the middle class, the consumers, the little guys, you're never going to win. And there's no voting, there's no say. If a business wants to make changes that adversely affect you, oh well. At least they're
Yeah,
offering them some help, right? A little, just to keep their customer relations up, because you can't just
I
leave them out in the
mean,
cold and say fuck them. So they like,
I'm
we'll help
really,
you.
I'm really hoping that they're, because sometimes most people just put up collateral in order to get loans and direct lines of credit and everything like that. I'm hoping that they're able to, work around that, help them out somehow, or just have
Right.
all these other banks help them out, because it's just it'll be hard for a lot of people, and you'll see a lot of unfinished projects and pretty much assets that are out there.
Yes, we will. We will see. So if you have Wells Fargo personal line of credit, you should be aware of this. Or if you own Wells Fargo as an investor, you might want to be aware of this.
Yeah,
Not
I
that it
mean, they
affects their
went
bottom
down in the
line, but
past month. They went down what, like 7%.
right. I don't know how
Today
this
they
affects
went
their
down 2%, 2.5%.
right on the news. I don't know how it affects their long term. You'd have to look at their balance sheet because it looks like that based on their other expenses on their balance sheet that they had decreased because they don't actually report how much of credit lines are actually owned, but they say there's a on their balance sheet there's this um, other credit option that has about 26 billion in it, which is like a 20 to 30% decrease from previous period. So it looks like that they were putting out less of those, but that could incorporate some or all of the revolving credit lines here as a part of that on their balance sheet. So
I
we'll see.
mean, that's interesting because it just shows that even with the reverse repos up and Wells Fargo being a participant that's able to participate in that, it's still not helping them.
Well, because the thing is, it's not just about money, because you can't just you need to be issuing, uh, based on the amount of capital your bank has. You can't just use it all. Like we think that just because the
Mhm.
banks have lots of money, like they're just big piles that they're hoarding. But reality is, even with all the relaxed rules, there are still many regulations that dictate how much they can spend, how much they can use, how much they
Mhm.
need to keep, how much they can have active in them out in or out loaned versus how much
Yeah, because
deposits
their
they have.
loans are liabilities.
Right.
And so they've
So
been racking that stuff up a long
right.
time. And if anyone starts defaulting, well, then they're in a hard spot. So the risk management team is telling them, hey, we got to stop these lines of credit.
Right. That is definitely an approach to this. So they based on these rules, they have restrictions and they're trying to fit within the parameters the Fed has set for them. And I think this is just kind of them looking at this in the long term and trying to figure out, is this going to be helpful or hurtful to us? Will this help us fit into these parameters as we try to adjust our balance sheet to match with what the Fed is requiring us to do? How many liabilities versus how much collateral versus how much deposits we have on the books at any given time. So